Good morning and good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining in to today's Education SIG session. We're very happy to introduce you to Tariq Khan, who's the chair of the Education SIG, along with many other charter members. We also have today, our guest speaker is Harish Mamtani, who's a long-standing charter member of TIE Atlanta, as well as been a past trustee of TIE Global. Welcome, Harish. Harish also has a panel of school leaders from India who will be discussing on affordable private schools today in India. A little bit of background on Harish. Harish has been a private wealth manager for several years in his career. And then as embodying what a TIE charter member looks like, he spent, much time now as the co-founder of Seed Schools, where he's truly giving back to the community with several schools in India. So he'll be discussing his schools, which are based in Hyderabad, as well as speaking with Kulbhushan Sharma and Sushil Dhankar, who are also school leaders in India. Over to you, Harish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohini. Thank you for this opportunity to share our ground realities of operating schools in India. And, I've joined several SIG sessions in the last few months. And what we've heard about is a lot of the policy decisions that are being made, a lot of the good things that are being done on the ground, but some of them are positive and some of them are disconnected from the reality of what we do on the ground. So quickly on my journey, I've been in the US for about 40 years, went to India in 2012 to run a small banking institution, which was lending money to schools. And through that journey, I walked into school after 32 years being out of India, and nothing had changed. So I still recall that day when I walked into the school, teachers were copying from the textbook to the board, kids were copying from the board to the notebook, and the teacher said, "Now copy it one more time at home." And that's sort of the education that was being given at a lot of these schools in India right now. So it bothered me a lot. Talked to my wife, and we said, "Hey, we've been wanting to do something in the education," and decided to take over a school in Hyderabad in 2013. From there, we've added 2 more schools in 2015. We have about 1,300 students, and we were supposed to add 2 more schools in this past June, but because of the pandemic, we have delayed it to next year. There's a lot of misconceptions about what the school segment looks like, how many students are going to government schools, private schools. So we'll share some of that landscape and then talk about sort of the challenges we're facing and how we're improving the quality of education. So today I've invited 2 panelists. Kulbhushan Sharma ji is president of an organization called NISA, and he'll share more about that. With that, Kulbhushan ji, please give a quick introduction of yourself.
Good day, Harish ji, and good day to all. Myself, Kulbhushan Sharma. I am running a budget private school in Ambala. This is a state of Haryana in India. And I am also president of National Independent Schools Alliance, which is the largest alliance of the private school, I may say, of the world, because the most schools are in India due to the great population.
Great, thank you so much. Sushil ji, can you give a brief introduction of yourself? And then we can.
Sushil ji, you're on mute.
Hi everyone. I'm Sushil Dhankar, and I'm running a school, Hari Vidya Bhawan, in one of the unauthorized colonies of Delhi, where the average income of the parents is somewhere around 20 to 25,000, not more than that, because most of the parents are either working as security guards or small carpenters, shopkeepers, or sales executives, or people are government employees but in the lower grade profile posts. So I'm running a school. We have 2,000 kids studying in our school. I started my journey in 2010, and I have done my graduation and post graduation from Australia, from La Trobe University.
Great, thank you. Kulbhushanji, if you can start off, with setting the stage on how the school landscape looks in India, given that you are dealing with primarily every state in India, and have a good understanding of the marketplace. So if you can do that, that'll be helpful for the audience to understand that.
Actually, Harishji, I am a commerce graduate, and I am pursuing my course in chartered accountancy. In the year 1990, our family faced a tragedy that my younger brother committed self-immolation during a protest against inequality. This incident was a turning point in my life, and I started a budget private school in India. My school fees is started from 600 per month to maximum 800 per month. I'm running a middle school. I started a budget private school in my younger brother's memory, because he was providing free education to economically weaker section children. So I started the school to keep his work alive of educating poor children. So my school was able to provide affordable education for uh, for 50 students, 450 students. But suddenly in 2003, state government introduced new rules named Education Rules 2003. They introduced the new rules. The major threat of these rules was the budget private schools were not able to compliance the land and the infrastructure building norms which are mentioned in these rules. Then I started working to save my school. I started my journey to save my schools. I found that there are thousands of similar schools were in the closer threat. Then I started visiting and meeting the schools. I visited in the streets, visited in the villages, visited in the cities, visited in the districts, and meet the private school owners, and find that the budget private school owners were under a huge amount of threat, because the government issued an arrest warrant against the non-compliance of the Education Rules 2003. That is the time I mobilized all the school owners of the Haryana state and raised our voice against the policy, which is not allowed the private school to provide affordable and quality education to the poor students, to the economically weaker poor students. We united all the schools in the state and launched a huge campaign. As part of the campaign, 96 budget private school owners were under the imprisonment of 10 days and 3 days under hunger strike in the jail. We, with all our efforts, we got a success, and the government had to agree with our demands and relax the norms. As a result, we saved 20,000 schools in Haryana. Then I joined the NISA and started the journey with NISA. NISA was started in 2011 with the support from the Center for Civil Society, which is the #1 think tank in education in India. NISA was started. So NISA was started in 2011, and we addressed the challenges raised by the Right to Education Act 2009. This was the first central act which created lot of policy challenges for the budget private schools. To bring solution, there was a need of a national alliance of private school, and establishment of NISA was meant to bring national level solution to the policy challenges. with support from the people of the country, all association members. I was elected the president of the NISA in 2015. NISA now has become the biggest federation of the budget private school in India. NISA has over than 1 lakh members, 50 member association all over the country. 26 states are the member of the NISA. They, which cater to the educational need of the more than 2 crores students below government per child expenditure through approx 10 lakh teachers. So
Mohini, can you
coming
put
back,
the next slide, please? The one, yeah. Kulbhushan ji, can you, we've shared the slide on NISA.
eh,
Yeah.
this is the table that there is in India total number of schools are 15 lakh. And 4 lakhs, 11 lakhs schools are government schools and 4 lakhs schools are private schools. We can say, and this is the data, if we are getting education to the 50% student in 4 lakh schools, and government is providing education, same numbers are educated by the government in 11 lakh schools. And we are providing education to the student at the rate, you can say, $7 to $15 per month. And government is providing education is very much expensive than us. You can see in data. And in Delhi, you can see only $18 per month. We are providing the education. So the budget private schools are providing education at very less charges to the students of India.
But the range of the schools is also all the way up to several lakhs a year, right? So the majority of the students attend budget schools in India.
Yeah. Majority of students likes the budget schools, and if we will go on the data, that is the separate thing. Many schools, government schools have even not a single student, because quality education is in where people thinks quality education, budget schools are providing quality education. So budget private schools are more popular than the government school in India. Now I come to your question, coming back to the core of your question. I see government intervention in education as an injustice to our children and teacher. And I find raising our voice against injustice our moral duty.
True. I mean, look, there has to be some regulation, but I think regulation also is to the point that it's restricting innovation in the school segment. Things we have to do have to be very much sort of just to cover the curriculum versus facing the reality. Most of our students, in 8th grade, they can't do 2nd grade math, but we have to keep moving them forward, right? So those creates challenges at the ground level for us, but for the government, is just that they have regulations. For example, government's own schools don't have fire equipment, but they require all the private schools to have it. So those disparities are causing a lot of problems for the schools as well. One important piece would be to understand is teacher salaries, right? What do you have any data on what the teacher salaries are in government schools versus private schools and budget private schools?
In budget private school, teacher salaries are very less than the government school salaries. In budget schools, teacher are getting 2,000 to 15,000 average in country. In metro cities, they are getting 15, 16, 17,000. And in the rural areas, the teachers are getting only 2, 3, 4, 5,000 teacher salaries. And government teacher salaries is government teacher are getting 25,000 minimum salary to 40, 60, 80,000.
True. But the accountability is also not there. Mostly, I mean, I know government's trying very hard. They've had quite a bit of successes and improvements, but the level of accountability that private schools have, especially because parents are paying, they hold us more accountable compared to the government schools where there's not as much accountability.
Yes, yes, Harish. Budget private school are totally accountable because parents are directly paying amount to us, and in the government school education is free, and the teacher salaries, government is giving teacher salary directly paid by the government. And
Mhm.
in our schools, parents are paying us and we are paying the salary to the teachers. Therefore, the budget private schools are most accountable to the parents, other than the government schools.
Very true. Very true.
If you allow me, Harishji, I'll give you a very small example about Delhi schools.
Please.
Right, a small budget school running as a primary school or a middle school, right? They have to pay salary equal to the government employees. That is,
Mm.
someone who's working as a primary teacher, they are getting minimum at the time of joining 40,000 rupees, right?
Mm.
A budget school in Delhi, a small, if I talk about, minimum fees, maybe if we say 600 rupees per month. So we are allowed to have 40 students in a section. So
Right.
if we calculate 6 into 400, it's 24,000. But the government norm says that you have to pay 40,000. So how is that possible?
Mm.
And you have
True.
to have 1.5 teachers per section in overall school. If you have 10 sections in school, so you need to have 15 teachers. So that is not at all possible. And
Right.
still, still the parents are preferring, budget private school instead of government school in the nearby locality.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing a lot of shift from government schools to private
Yeah.
schools. I mean, teacher salary is one of our major costs in the school, and that's why also there's this disparity in what the child expenditure is per child. $80 for the government schools versus about 15 for us, right?
Yeah.
So, Kulbhushan, should we cover the next slide and then we can move talk to Sushil?
This is about the NISA. That NISA is in NISA's presence in 26 states. 52 state associations are our members, and more than 1 lakh schools are associated with NISA.
Yeah, we've been following your work, and I know there's been a tremendous effort, at least in the last few years since I've been following your work and sort of bringing fairness to the system. So thank you for all you do and the organization does. Sushilji,
Yep.
so we heard your background briefly, where you're did your MBA in Australia. When people ask me why I started these schools, I blame it on temporary insanity, right? Wasn't thinking properly for a while, but what was your reason?
My reason, I mean, I came back from Australia for my marriage, right? So when I came back, my father said that if you have decided to go back, so he was running a school till primary level. He started in year 2000. So he said that get my school recognized till middle level so that I can also innovate and experiment, because I just have 170 students, and it's very difficult for me to run the school as well, to cover the expenses as well. If I'll be having a middle school, then I'll be having more number of students. I said, how much time would it take? He said it would take 3 to 4 months. But actually, I ended up, getting the school recognized till secondary level. It took me 1.5 years. I joined in 2010 and I got my first recognition letter in 2011. So after joining in, because recognition process was taking time, I actually involved myself in, school functioning, academics, admin, and everything. So when I joined, when I started looking at the academics part, I, felt that it is the same story which I was into a couple of years back. Because when we were in school, like the problem was that we were first generation English speakers. So if we were able to read, we were not able to understand. If we were able to understand, we were not able to speak fluent English, right? And we used to face that harassment in the classroom also. I still remember when I was in class, I said I instead of I. So the entire class was laughing because I was studying in one of the elite schools. schools of Delhi. So I actually connected myself with these students, and I thought these students are also facing this similar kind of a problem, because the background they're coming in, they are the first generation speakers, and they are more into rote learning. So I started working out on their English and their academics part. There were results. So parents had a huge expectation that someone who had come from abroad and studied, spent his time around 6 years in abroad, maybe he can change the future of our kids. So that expectations in the parents' eye, forced me to stay back, and I started working in the school aggressively. And you won't believe that within 3 to 4 years we had a strength of 2,000 kids.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah, we had 2,000 kids by 2014, and still the school was secondary level.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the force behind why I stayed back in India, and I tried to fulfill the expectations of the parents.
No, that's excellent. And we're seeing, quite honestly, a lot of inspiring stories like you, people who are leaving careers and entering the education with a pure desire to change the quality, right?
Yeah.
And
few of my Hariji, few of my friends who are still in Australia say that your decision was wrong at that particular time, because we guys are earning so much. But I say no, I'm quite satisfied with what I'm doing. Maybe I don't have a house in a very posh colony, right? But I'm still happy working with kids when I see expectations and respect in their eyes. So I am quite satisfied.
But if you hear the stories on the ground, what is really talked about is how much money the schools are making, private schools. So talk a little bit about the economics of the school that you operate, and your fee structure, and then sort of how you're sustainable.
Look, what we are charging is somewhere around, my fee starts from rupees 1,200 for a preschool class, right? And it goes up to 3,000 rupees till a senior secondary grade 12 class. And the average salary, per month. Average salaries we are paying is somewhere around 15 to 20,000 maximum.
Mm-hmm.
So amount of money is there, but it's right. But the passion should be there. If you want to earn money from private school, passion should be there. And even parents don't hesitate to pay money when you are actually giving results.
True.
And results doesn't mean academics. It's the overall development of the child. Because I made an impact, working 4 years rigorously. I think that I really made an impact, because a school does not changes the life of the students, but the entire locality of the school.
Absolutely.
So even the parents, grandparents also. Yeah.
And I think
I'll give you a very small example. When we started this school, I said that every student should go home and touch the feet of the grandparents. They should wish them. It was very little small things. So when they used to go back, they used to hear that they had a fight. Their parents had fight with their grandparents, and the students used to come to me that my parents were abusing my grandparents. So I will not how can I wish them, because they are not good to me, to my parents. So we had to counsel the parents also. This is just a small example. We counsel because in these areas, students, you can change the mindset of the students, but to change the mindset of the parents, it requires a lot of effort. So we started working with parents also.
True. No, I think what we've seen also is when a good school goes in the neighborhood, it puts pressure on other schools as well to improve the quality, right? So I think it's very positive change that when schools come in and they're run properly with the proper intentions, it actually lifts the community, like you said, but beyond sort of even the households and the students that are coming to your schools. So, what are the top 3 challenges you face that, and then, we'll talk about, we'll put the burden on Kulbhushanji to help us solve those problems.
Okay. Top 3 challenges. First of all, government interventions. I think government should facilitate schools rather regulate schools. As you said, there should be minimum regulation. That should be on the safety part, right? Rather, government should see, how can they can create job opportunities, or how they can link market job opportunities to the school syllabus or the higher education syllabus. But they are more into, running the schools and regulating the schools. So first major challenge is because that stops us from innovating, right? Experimenting. That stops us because our more focus is to fulfill the government regulations and all. Second major challenge, a teacher who has done a professional B.Ed course, Bachelor of Education course, right, in the age of 22 years or 21 years. So after till 40 years, you won't believe there is no training. So how will that teacher update herself?
Yeah.
Right. So there should be at least 1 week training every year for all the teachers. It should be compulsory for all the teachers, so they can keep them up to date with the technology, also with the government norms, also with the changing. Like, before our focus was on teaching, how the teacher is teaching in a classroom, but now the focus has shifted to learning outcomes, right? So teacher has to be up, the regular trainings are required for this thing. And the third thing which we face, you can say salaries part is one of the things which we face a lot of problem. I mean, it should be open. Maybe this government can fix minimum wages for the teachers, that, or they can say that if you are charging this much fee, you can pay this much salary. But now we have to forge the documents or manipulate the documents, right? That's what we guys are doing. Yeah.
So this is a private call. No one will know about that. Kulbhushan ji, how are you going to help us solve?
I don't hesitate to say that, all the private schools are manipulating documents.
Absolutely. I mean, India is a country of workarounds, right? So they throw up regulations, we figure out how to get around them.
Exactly.
So Kulbhushan ji, how are you going to help us solve all our problems, or at least top 3 ones?
Mute.
You're on mute, sir. Kulbhushan ji, you're on mute.
Okay, Harish ji. Harish ji, NISA makes the 2 wings in their association. One wing is deals with the advocacy matters and solve the advocacy problems by meeting with ministers and by filing the case in High Court and Supreme Court. And other wing is quality wing, who solves the problems related to the qualities. NISA has taken several initiatives to address the identified challenges. We identify the challenges and then makes our program. We have created NISA Quality Charter for the schools in our network with support from the Grey Matter Capital. You know about the Grey Matter Capital, which is an international organization. We are slowly getting schools to comply with this charter. We have developed a mobile application for self-assessment of schools as a part of this initiative. Right now, we are assessing 500 schools, and in which we will be identifying 100 best micro innovation program across India. This 100 school will be recognized for the same. We are conducting National Analytical Aptitude Test named NAT under the program UDAN. We make a program under the UDAN named UDAN to promote 21st century skills among students. We got Microsoft to get the school's digital infrastructure. We are going to conduct BRICS Math. This is international competition of mathematics in which 1 lakh budget private school students this year to inculcate interest for maths among students. In past, we have conducted teacher training programs in partnership with the Star Education. This is a NGO and foundation. We also got school leader to undergo training with Indian School Leadership Institute, ISLI. We conducted workshop in network schools in a partnership with Desh Apnaye Foundation to promote civic sense among the children, to make them active, alert, and informed citizen. NISA is also working towards creating 100 model budget private schools in India which should work as a role model for the school to revolutionize quality education. We are emphasizing on the quality education of the budget private schools. We are also working with 40 budget private schools to enhance the reading skills of students with the support of World Reader Organization of Kenya based NREAD under NREAD program. NISA also providing Bolo English project opportunity to 50,000 students in this time of pandemic to learn to speak and write English. These are only a few initiatives. We are working on more and more projects. I can speak at the moment which I am telling you some projects of the NISA. The key thing is we are always conscious of the challenges and continue to address the challenges with a variety of initiatives.
Good. So, one thing we should point out. So, the panelists you're seeing today are probably, I would say, top 5% of school operators, right? And sort of their quality, but, the group is very diverse. So there are people who had started schools, decades ago that haven't really kept up with the changes, with the new pedagogy that's in place or the new techniques that are in place. So NISA does a very good job of sort of curating these various systems that can be then implemented across India. And there's a lot of support system behind it. So that's one thing I've seen very positive. And it gives support to the school owners that have not been able to keep up with the changes. And as a result, there's a lot of pressure also, like we were talking earlier, from good schools coming in the community from the parents to do the improvements, right? So one question, I'm seeing some questions, we'll come and address those. So the new NEP 2020 was just introduced recently, right? Can you talk about two positives from there that you've seen that'll help, and two decisions that were made that probably are not in the best interest of the education system? I think that'll be helpful because a lot of people, we heard a few weeks ago from some of the panelists who were talking about the NEP 2020s. This would be more of coming from a perspective of the ground reality. Sushil, do you want to start that off?
Harish, I will speak, or Sushil, you are asking to Sushil.
You can start. I think Sushilji might be frozen, looks like. Yeah,
policies are always made for the good, but action is a very necessary part of it. So what I tell you, what is the two positive things in the Indian education policy. One of the key highlight of the NEP 2020, I think, has to be its focus on early education, which was not last year's. Early childhood education. Pre-primary would be integrated into mainstream education. Private school was providing this education, early childhood education. Budget private school was also providing, but government sector was not providing. This is the one positive thing. Now government started early childhood education in their school and in formal education system. The other key feature for which the NEP has to be recognized for its recommendation on interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary studies, which was not last old policies was not authorized recognizing this matter. And you ask about the challenges. So most some biggest challenges the Right to Education Act 2009, Right to Education, which was introduced in India in 2009. Right to Education has done a huge harm to the budget private schools with its input centric approach. It has led to school closure. Many schools closed in India due to the Right to Education Act. In reality, it has forced the parents to go back to the same government schools, which parents has abandoned. We are expecting NEP to recognize the failure of RT, but it has expanded the scope of the RT from 6 to 14 years to 3 to 18 years. One of the bigger challenge of RT Act 2009 is not able to implement the promise of the Act. The Act directs to pay per child fund to the private schools under 25% economically weaker section admission. Still, the government not declare per child expenditure and not even did the reimbursement to the schools. Uh, Thousands crores are pending of the private school, budget private school, and the other private school towards the government. If NEP recommends to expand the 3 to 18 years, this situation will be more challenging to the budget private schools. And another thing, the other key challenge is that budget private school must not be regulated with the same standard and norms as the other private school or government schools. The regulatory approach must be facilitative in nature, which Sushil already said. NEP has not addressed the issue. For example, in the industrial sector, the small scale industries are categorized as a different group so that the policy could help the development. Similar approach is not adopted in the education sector, one policy for government, elite and budget private school. And we are demanding that there should be a separate rule for the budget private school because they are charging very different and very less than government schools and the elite school. Then this is our major demand. There should be a separate rules for the budget private schools so they can run their schools smoothly.
So, just so for the audience who may not know what the RT is, right to education. And one of the main components of that was that each year, 25% of the class would be through the underprivileged sections. And then each year they would continue to the next class, and the new class would, from first grade onwards, would get 25%, right? So over 10-year period, the entire school would have about 25% from EWS. Right?
And government is not paying the amount according to the reimbursement norms also. That is the very biggest problem in the India and in the education sector.
So not only are they not paying, which causes harm to the school, but it puts the burden on the other parents who are paying to cover the cost, because school has to cover the cost from somewhere, right?
Yes.
So I think it's damaging the parents who, excuse me, who are actually paying on time and trying to improve the quality for their own.
Going to the 75% rest of the parents.
Absolutely.
And of the schools.
So, while we wait for Sushil to join, one question is, what kind of returns are we making, right? So from these schools that are charging 1,000 to 2,000 rupees, I can share my perspective, or please feel free to start off, Kulbhushan ji, and then I'll add to it. I can go ahead. So, when I came to run the NBFC in 2012, we were seeing quite hefty returns, like 40% bottom line for schools that were charging about 1,500 to 2,000 a month. Excuse me. But over time, because the returns were so good, a lot of schools opened up, so competition increased. And as a result, the returns have come down quite a bit. I mean, I can share in our schools, and I think one of the challenges that Sushil and I and Kulbhushan ji face is, for us to run a school, we feel like computer classes, sports, proper English classes, library, science lab, extracurricular activities, those are the basics. And as we keep adding those different programs, our costs keep going up, right? So in our school, we have about 500 students. Our fees about less than 25,000 average per year. And after a lot of sort of, stringent cost cutting and making sure that we're not cutting the quality, we're at about 10% EBITDA. So typically, I think, school like ours at least should be charging about 35 to 40,000 rupees fees per year, which is, again, some of the new schools we're opening up, we're doing that kind of a fee level just to make sure that investors can get a reasonable return and the school's sustainable without having to look at the cost-cutting measures at all the time. Shilji, welcome back.
I'm sorry. There was some network issue. Yeah.
No worries. So I think Kulbhushan covered on the NEP. The questions are coming in, so in interest of time, also I'll cover 2 more questions, and then we can address the questions from the audience. So recently we've seen a lot of venture capital investments going into the Edtech sector, and it was for a time thought that Edtech would really disrupt the schools to the point that brick and mortar schools would have to shut down. I think we've seen the reality, like parents are now so eager to send their kids back to school just so they can have a break, that I don't think brick and mortar schools are going anywhere. But what's your view in sort of how the Edtech is helping the student, and then also how it's helping the school? Okay. Shilji, if you can start off with that.
Yeah, first thing, I mean, Edtech can never replace a live classroom teaching, because live classroom teaching it's like teacher bonding with the students, motivating them, right? So Edtech can never, it's just an option. Like we have a trend in India that after school, the kids would definitely go to tuitions, maybe English tuition, maths tuition, and science tuition. If we talk about up to secondary level, these 3 tuitions, all the kids take these 3 tuitions, right? Edtech has helped these kids rather walking to the tuition centers. If they don't understand a concept, they have an option. They can always refer to digital content. This is how the Edtech has helped. And in schools also, we are taking help of, digital content, because we have merged digital content, into classroom teaching. If a child doesn't understand a concept, because we normally see if a teacher says, have you understood the concept, child would nod his head. Yes, ma'am, I've understood. But actually they don't. Because there are, few children learn by reading, listening, few children learn by doing things. Few children, learn by watching visuals. So it is an addition to the teaching aids.
Yeah, I think we see technology as a facilitator, not as a replacement. Yeah. And I think it's been a lot of support to the schools from that point of view. And we've been using Khan Academy and some of these tools. And Kulbhushan also mentioned earlier, like they were using the English Bolo apps and so forth. So that's been a good positive. Kulbhushan, one question is here for you. How is NISA different than Ekal Vidyalaya, I think? I'm trying to find that question. So can you, how's NISA differs from Ekal Vidyalaya?
How NISA is a organization of the budget school, Harish ji, and their members are running budget private school. Budget private school means people running school by their own money, by their own resources. Ekal Vidyalaya, one single person is educating the students. This is totally different concept. Ekal Vidyalaya means one teacher is delivering education to the students. And in budget schools, who are the member of the NISA, they are full-fledged schools, formally schools. We are providing education by the full-fledged schools, which are catering education at very lowest rate, which I mentioned. We are giving education by charging 500 rupees and 1500 per month. And some of the budget private school are providing education at the more less than that amount. Even we have information that some schools are charging only 100 rupees per month. These are totally different than Ekal Vidyalayas.
True.
And along with fulfilling all the government norms, we are fulfilling all the government norms, safety standards and all.
Right, Sushilji. We are following also safety norms. Yeah. We are also following the hygienic norms, building safety norms.
Yeah.
One question was
that are not implemented on the Ekal Vidyalayas. They are not under the rules.
They're not registered. They're not recognized entities for education. So one question was, how do schools cover deficits? So if there's any losses.
There are no losses.
Yeah, well, in that case, I'll answer the question.
Yeah.
Nobody is running Harishji at loss.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No school are running under the loss, but they are charging a less amount and they are giving the teachers to the less salaries, so
Yeah.
they can manage their schools.
So in our school, we did have losses because initially we were very sort of, got all these programs introduced, and over time the costs kept increasing, right? And like I was saying earlier, for us to provide what we think of bare necessities like computer classes, sports, etc., keeps increasing costs. So we had to actually really streamline and bring a lot of these programs in-house. We didn't cut them, but we brought them in-house versus using third parties. And they're just like any business, the entrepreneurs, and we consider ourselves entrepreneurs in the school segment. We've self-funded. If there's a loss, we have to bridge that gap. Don't take salaries. Just like any other entrepreneur, we operate the schools the same way.
Like,
So-
like we don't, Harishi, what we do is normally we take rent from school, right? Because our society, or we have provided school buildings, right? Huge setup. So we take rents from school. So if we find there is, need of investment, more investment to the infrastructure or maybe to the technology, sometimes what we do is we stop taking rent for a couple of months. Yeah, we do that.
it's all,
It's all we have to manage. Yeah, right.
So just like any business, we don't want to call
manage
ourselves.
ourselves. Our families help, say, in the budget private school, and we manage ourselves because no one donate us. A government is banks also not provide loans to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even the loans that are available to schools are at 21, 26%. I mean,
those are
the organization.
Some companies are
business
giving
loans.
loan, but their rate of interest is very high.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard rates as high as 48% annualized, 4% per month kind of numbers. So, there are school owners who do take those we call them hand loans, hard money loans, to bridge the gaps and all that. So someone even asked a question if schools can accept donations. So at least in Telangana, schools are a society, so we can accept donations. And in fact, we've had some CSR funding through friends that knew the work we were doing.
Government rules are that we cannot accept the donation from the parents.
Correct.
Outside persons can give us the donation.
Correct.
But very literally persons gives us donation. Very rare chances are that.
Yeah, we were lucky to get some
ourselves.
We were lucky to get some CSR funding a few years ago, and what we did was we kept introducing new programs, and we used CSR funding to introduce that, make sure it worked, and then charge the parents for that. So we didn't want to have that risk taken by the parents initially. Tariq, I think you had a question.
NISA is contacting the CSR companies who has CSR and appealing them to help the budget schools and budget schools, not the budget school students. We are contacting them and saying that you should help the budget private school students because their parents are very poor and they comes from the economically weaker section. So we are contacting them, and many foundations are coming forward with NISA to help the budget private school student to improve their quality education.
Tariq, I think you wanted some.
Yes, really interesting getting into the real issues at the sort of economically underprivileged levels. Now, I know you're following the chat window, but there's a question that's been sitting there from Vijendra on the question and answer panel. Maybe you don't get to see it.
I didn't see that.
And it's a long comment, and the way I read this is, should we also be bringing people or representatives of government schools? Like if the bulk of the education is not from budget private schools, but from other categories, then we should bring them into the conversation as well. That's how I read this question, but have a look and let's see what we can comment on this.
Yeah, so about 50% of the students go to private schools, right? So it's about 50-50. So absolutely, I mean, I think the government's well represented because they're making decisions on behalf of the government schools. Where I think the issues are coming, at least from my point of view, is the standards are different for the two. Right now, if you apply the same standards if you want us to pay the same salaries, then we have to increase the fees, and if we increase the fees, parents won't be able to afford it, and so it's a whole vicious cycle there a little bit. And even what I was saying earlier is like, for us, we last year we had to spend some 6 lakhs on putting fire equipment in the school. It's absolutely necessary, right? Completely believe in it, but is is it also not important for government schools to have it? They should also have it, right? So the enforcement they do on private school and then not do it on government school, that sort of gives us a heartburn and an issue. But other panelists can chime in sort of the how government schools should be represented as well in this conversation. I think looks like maybe frozen.
I guess they have a hard enough time talking to them through NISA, so they're saying why bring them here as well.
Yeah, I think so see, the government schools are very different in terms of the principles, and they cannot enforce change like we can, right? If we want to do a change in our schools, we make a decision as a group and go make the change. From government's point of view, that's not as easy. Like in our school, we wanted to do sports. It's up to us to figure out how to get the playground and what sports we need, what kind of coaches we need. Same for computer classes. Right now we're using computer classes, and the curriculum you would see is like we're still teaching DOS and ROM and RAM, which is completely obsolete. So we've actually gone and rebuilt the computer curriculum to make sure it's more relevant to the students. Sorry, Sushil, go ahead.
Yeah, Harish, I'll tell you, a lot of NGOs are there who are providing, who are helping out government schools in improving the quality also, like Teach for India is there. And a lot of NGOs are working in regards to good touch and bad touch, education, or maybe gender equality education, or, running photography, or, life skill courses in government schools. But they find it really difficult because the staff over there don't, support them, right? And now the shift is that they have started moving towards budget private schools, because they see the children who are going to government school are also from the same section of the society where the students of budget schools are coming. And
Right.
in budget schools, the support is there. The entire staff, even students, will support you. I'll tell you, in my school, there are 3 programs running at the moment from different NGOs. Right, we are educating them about good touch and bad touch, which is good touch, bad touch, gender inequality program with class 8 student. Desh Apnaye program in the entire school, where we give them activities in relation to in regards to the civics education, right, where they go to the community and work for the community. So a lot of NGOs who don't get support from the government schools, and through CSR, they are helping out budget schools.
True. And it's not only for what are you talking about, the good touch, bad touch. It's not only for the girls, but we're also educating the boys. So
boys also.
Yeah,
we educate boys regarding drugs abuse. We have drugs abuse program also in our school.
Yeah. So we're running short of time. So we've got a very sort of enterprising, very successful, innovative group on this as an audience on this call. What can they do to support where do you see the opportunities in terms of either investment or support for the school segment in general? It doesn't have to be only private schools, but overall school sector in India.
Okay.
Sushil, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think first thing I'll tell you, there are a lot of players in the budget private school sector who are not passionate enough to run the school. They came into to the school education, or they opened the school, but now due to a lot of government norms, or maybe they are not passionate enough to run the schools, they are moving out of the business, right? So it would be really great if you guys could get some passionate players into this sector who can run the school and who can provide quality education. They can take over the schools or they can rent those schools. In COVID, because of COVID also, I'll tell you the collection of fees in budget private schools in the month of July was somewhere around 7% or 10% maximum, right? So a lot of schools which were on rent are standing at the verge of closure, right? If the next session also, we are not able to open the schools, I mean, a lot of schools would be closing. So you guys can get passionate players who can improve the quality of education, who can, help budget schools, ultimately helping the, economically weaker sections getting good quality education. So that would be really great. Also, one more thing I would like to add, you can also, see what you can come up with different types of teachers training program, right? Which will, again, as I said, which would help teachers to keep them update with the technology and the changing, changing educational outcomes. So that would be also, I mean, really great, because there are very few training programs for budget private school teachers. Like, I mean, close to no training programs for budget schools.
Yeah, one thing that's been very exciting to me has been the kind of people that are entering the system, right? So especially if you look at Teach for India fellows who have finished their programs, they're really wanting to get in the education, but they don't have crore and a half or 2 crore it costs to start a school. So we're actually, that's what we're doing is we're buying these schools up, exiting out the old traditional operators and bringing in new progressive operators. So it's been really, that's been the, I would say the biggest change maker for us, is to make sure we get the right leadership at the school. And as a result, and I think you're right, I think because of the pandemic, out of some 4 lakh schools, I wouldn't be surprised if 20-25% at the brink are just shutting down. Especially on the WhatsApp groups that we're on, we keep reading a lot, and some suicides are also starting up. So it's definitely a distressed situation. But I think if we can use this to bring in the right kind of operators, it's a really a huge opportunity to convert. Tariq, we're doing on time. If we have a few more minutes, we can take some questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, Harish. We can take a question or two. I know there's a lot of discussion on the chat mode, so take a couple more questions, and then I'll hand over to Tariq as well to talk about the next upcoming sessions and summarize.
Sure, thank you for that. So one question is, why do teachers want to work in this sector in private schools when the salaries are so low compared to the government schools?
Riji, this is a very simple answer. Everybody wants job, and in India there is a very unemployment in India, and most of the girls are educating, taking their degrees in education sector, and there is very crowd of the teachers in India. So they are working on the low rate also, because that is the need of their teacher also.
Harish, a very practical answer I will give you. The locality where my school is, I told you that, the average income is 20 to 25,000, right? So teachers come from a background where the requirement of money, it's not huge. So they accept the current salaries and they work for low salaries also, because there are not enough opportunities in government schools. What government does is they hire teachers on contractual staff, right? Paying them 20 to 25,000. In Delhi, they are paying 33,000, close to 33. And that too, if they come to school, if it's off on particular day, they don't get paid. They get paid on daily, attendance.
True.
Right. So they come from a locality, their income is not so huge. So they accept those salaries and work. And they're giving good results in comparison to government schools. They are actually giving good results.
And they know that school is not generating much money, so they can pay them higher salaries. They are mutually agreed on this salary.
Yeah. No, I think, see, if you're exactly right. So what we've seen in our schools, a lot of this is usually second income. It's usually female teachers for the most part.
Yes.
And they also find that, either families don't want them to go work in a corporate environment. This is actually, 9 to 4 kind of time frame, no after hours responsibilities. So those are some of the facets that help in sort of attracting them. And, we've also seen there's a lot of aspiration to get to the government job. So this is actually a stepping stone for a lot of teachers, and, they want to pay their dues and get to a government job, and the salaries are higher, tenures there, and so forth. So we do see that in our schools. We've seen there's a lot of turnover also. We spend a lot of money and effort and resources on training the teachers. So we have an in-house training program for our 3 schools. And we see, as soon as we train them, a lot of teachers end up leaving for 2 reasons. One is either some of them offers them more money, or we're putting too much burden on them because our requirements from them are much higher than maybe another school. So it's not worth, although we pay about 20% more than the schools in the neighborhood.
Yes.
But they're like, it's not worth it. I'd rather have less responsibility and make a little bit less money. But then again, we've been able to retain about 40-50% of our teachers. And my view is, if you don't want to stay, don't want to do the work, feel free to leave, and we'll hire another group and keep training them. In fact, parents ask us a lot, right? I don't know if you have this. Oh, your school's constantly losing teachers. I'm like, it's good actually. This is training for your kids to adapt to the new person, new environment, versus having the same teacher. So let me see. I'm trying to keep up with the questions.
Harish, a question from Craig Abbott, in New York, on if there are any stats on private school students compared to higher education or government schools.
In terms of learning outcomes, so what kind of stats?
Yes, I believe he's asking in terms of learning outcomes for private school students moving to.
Kulbhushan, that's your question compared to the government.
Undoubtedly, private budget schools are giving good education. Then the peoples are coming to us, and the ASER conducted the survey also, at which reports comes out that the private schools are better than the government schools. And I think parents are the better judge. They are judging the government schools and private schools. What survey will say, parents knows everything, who is providing good education. Survey is also saying that private schools are better. But I think parents are best judges. They are judging that the government school private school is better than the government school, and survey is also saying that in India. We are
that's why 4 lakh private school are accommodating 50% of the enrollment in India. In comparison to
this is the government data. But what I can say, there is an agency CAG. Everybody knows about the CAG. CAG conducted a survey and published a report that there is a 5 to 10% students are fake in government schools. So we can say they are not 50-50 in private schools and budget school. We are providing education to the 60% students of the India.
So Craig's question was, I think, trying to find out how many students from private school versus government school end up going to college. Any idea? I mean, I can use give some data points from our schools. Sushil, if you have some data points.
There is
how many
exact data
sorry
available to us, but we can say our school students are going to the higher studies than government schools. There is the more dropout in the government school. This is education policies also recognizes that.
Sure. Sorry, Moini, I think some people are trying to find out how to get in touch with us. So if you want to just share our emails, that'll be fine. I know Vijendra is asking for a question. I'm not seeing it.
Harish, it was in the Q&A. Vijendra,
okay.
This question was a little bit lengthy, but I think we did address it briefly. Some of the questions, there was also a question from Mamta Jain on their cost that we referred to earlier, 7 to 15 US dollars, was that the cost that the parents are paying or related to schools? And Vijendra's question was a bit similar on the range of costs for schools.
Yeah, so one question is if student is paying 500 rupees to 1500 per month, is he not from a poor family? Yeah, I mean, we can, Sushil, you had some data points on your parents and their income levels.
I'll tell you, I mean, someone who's working as a guard and earning 13,000, but he's still willing to send their kids spending 500 to 1200 rupees or 1500 rupees. He's still sending the child to budget private school because that guard or maybe that parent income group, average income group of 20,000 doesn't want the struggle which they have faced in their life. They don't want their children to face that struggle in life. An auto driver doesn't want their kid to drive auto like him, or a guard doesn't want their child to become a guard like him. So they prefer private budget schools because they cannot send their children to elite schools. They prefer budget schools, private schools, instead of government schools.
Sharma, the question for you is the $7 to $15 cost for the school. Is that cost to school or to the parent?
The cost to the parents.
Parents.
Yeah. So Mamta, the way that's what we charge the parents, and then from there we sort of cover all the expenses of the school and keep operation. So look, I think this has been a very interesting session to give folks the ground reality. And sort of a self-criticism of budget private schools also. Not everything is perfect. There's a lot of people who are not providing the quality level of education. Some have really built it on the name itself and the brand name. There's a lot of pressure on the students to go through this tuition classes after schools, even though, and the same teacher that's teaching in the school teaching afterwards. There's this issue with IIT coaching centers at the school where sixth graders are starting to be prepared to do IIT coursework. So not everything is perfect, but certainly there's a lot of accountability. And I think what's really, I think, differentiates us, at least from my knowledge, is that we have such high demands from the parents. Even a auto driver, they'll hear something some other school is doing, or even hear from what the homes, domestic help, they're working in homes, and what the kids or the families they're working for are doing, and they'll come and ask us, right? Aap kyun nahi kar rahe ho? Ye school mein aise padha rahe hain, aap bhi padhao. So I think that's been a very sort of positive for us, is to get that participation from the parents as well. Any closing comments from your side? And then we can try to wrap up. Shilji, you want to start it?
From my side, I think, always, budget private schools are criticized, they are not providing quality education. But if you come and spend maybe 1 day or 2 days in our schools, you will find and you will actually know how much hard work we are putting in. Right from learning outcomes to learning by doing, because now the shift is changing. I'll give you an example of Delhi. We don't criticize government schools also. Condition of government schools have improved in Delhi, right? So maybe by 10% or 15%, they are doing really good job. But budget schools will have to keep up with pace, right? They'll have to be above government schools to survive in this competitive environment, right? And from their private school competitors as well. So private budget schools are open, very open-mindedly. They accept all the, programs run by NGOs also, and they keep on implementing and experimenting in their schools to improve themselves. So that's the best part of the budget private school, and that too in a very low price. So I would request, at this platform, if anyone wants to visit budget private school, whoever comes to India, my school or other budget private schools are open for them. They can visit anytime. And please spend a day or two in the school. You will realize that how much hard work we are putting in.
In fact, I would highly encourage it, because one thing we want our kids to get is the exposure to different walks of life, different careers, different backgrounds, how you got there. Because most of these kids won't have it. And what we do is we actually record these sessions and then share them with other schools as well. So anyone who wants to visit India, email, any one of us. Will make sure you find a school in your neighborhood to go visit.
Yeah.
Sharmaji, your comments?
Hariji, I will thank you and your group, Thai group, and who are attending this meeting. And I always says that the help the budget private school students, not the schools, because they need the quality education. Budget private school are trying to give them the best quality education by their own sources, but they need the educational quality things which can provide the many persons who are living abroad or working on the companies which are catering the education uh, tools. So I request all, if we can help the quality to improve the quality education in budget schools, that will be the great help to the education sector and to the budget private school students.
In fact, I would encourage, even visit the government schools, right? Because those kids also would need the exposure. The way I always look at it, my donations can go to government schools, investments goes to private schools. That's how I've kind of taken my approach, because just the need
Parents
base
are
is that way.
just like the one student is going to the government school, and mostly what happens, say girls are going to the government schools of the same family, and boys coming to the budget schools.
Well, I think we've run our time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ty, for the opportunity to let us share our stories, and very much appreciate your time. Tariq, I'm gonna hand it back to you. And if anyone wants to get in touch with us, please do it. Yeah, we're all available. Thank you.
Thanks, Harish, and Kulbhushan and Sushil. We are really honored to have you here. Hearing this conversation today, especially from a distance, and this started because, Harish, 40 years USA, going back to India to run budget school. I said, what? And you're a private wealth manager? Are you doing charity? And, there's a whole story here. And of course, there are ways to make it work. But when you look at make it work, if you go to basic economics, factors of production, land, capital, and humans, right? And India has no shortage of humans. Of course, capital may be an issue. But hearing this conversation, I look at what the power of human beings, whether it's parents or whether it's activists trying to influence government, whether it's educators, it's just fascinating how India is the place where these things happen. Like if I go to an underprivileged area in the USA, whether it's, parts of Brooklyn or parts of Baltimore and so on, do I see the same energy, human energy and understanding? Maybe I don't. And I don't know what it is. I'm not a social scientist that way. But the fact that you guys describe, you go to these areas and the farmer who's barely making a living, he still spends 500 rupees a month to send his child to school and so forth. I think there's just human energy there, and you guys are right at the center of it, and it needs to be capitalized. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. This is excellent. Mohini, back to you.
Thank you, Tariq. Thanks, Harish, Kulbhushan ji, Sushil ji. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom on budget private schools. It's such a hot button topic with a lot of people so passionate about education, and 250 million students in India is really a large number, and it's all thanks to you and many people, many educators, school leaders like yourself in India that are making a huge change in improving the quality of education. So thank you so much for bringing this topic to our attention. You brought out very clearly how low-income parents, even with their low income or medium income, prefer to send the children to a budget private school. And even though the establishment has put in several restrictions, you all are charging ahead, and it's very, very creditable. So thank you for all of your efforts, for your decision in coming into this field and improving the quality. I think all of the panelists The attendees were inspired. Many of them are educators themselves. So thank you everyone for attending this session. I've left the links for the connections for Harish, Kulbhushan and Sushil on our chat. But seeing everyone's interest, we will loop back to all of our attendees on on email and share the video recording as well as their links, so you can keep connected, bring forth your investments, or some people have also offered their free time for teaching the children. And it's been a really inspiring session. So thank you so much, everyone. I will also bring up a slide. We have a constant cadence of our education SIG sessions. And so I'll just bring up that slide on our next session. Just a minute. The next session is on 17th of December, and we will have Dr. Sriram Iyer, who is also a co-chair of Education SIG, bringing in one of the speakers, Dr. Jacopo Tani. So we'll invite all of you to attend that session as well. And I know we are quite over time, so if you all have any questions, again, do reach out to Harish, Kulbhushan or Sushil, who will answer your questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kulbhushan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.